Just so you know, we recorded financial aid night. We'll also record this evening's event, if you want to call that, and that will be up on the website tomorrow. Requires me getting the assistance of one of our assistants, Ellen Dowd, to post it. So I'll convert it into a YouTube and have it up by tomorrow, hopefully. So everyone can view this as many times as you'd like, which I give a little chuckle because while I think it's very informative, I don't know how entertaining it will be. So thank you for coming tonight. It's Red Folder evening. This is the kickoff to our post-secondary planning and process, and also how we assist students in their planning process. You'll get a little bit of everything tonight. Mostly it's a sit and get, as we call it in ed speak. So I'm going to do a lot of talking at you. However, if you have questions, I am a one-man show tonight. Just jot them down. We'll have a Q&A at the end, and hopefully I can answer those questions then. And as always, if I don't know the answer then, I'll take note of it and get you an answer tomorrow. For those of you that have remote students, we've left those red folders downstairs in the front vestibule, in the front lobby. It's in a red milk crate on the table where all the materials for remote students are left. If you're having trouble getting to the building during school hours, just let us know, and we'll make arrangements to make sure you get that folder. It's important for us that you have that. But also know tonight I'm going to demonstrate how you can access all those materials digitally as well. So never to fear, we'll get you that folder, but you can always get this stuff digitally. So let's get started without any further ado. I'm Jeremy Marks. I'm the Director of Counseling here at Camden Hills Regional High School. And I can't tell you how nice it was to walk around campus this afternoon and see so many of your students and kids just enjoying themselves, having fun, and feeling like we really are approaching the after. So I wish we could have done this in person, but we will do this in some sort of fashion next year in the fall. A reminder for seniors, we'll do a refresh, we'll call it. And if parents really want to, and I get some feedback, we may even do a refresh for parents at night. So let me share my screen and get to my presentation here so that we're okay. Okay. So I always like to start with this Peanuts cartoon. It's always a little funny. I kept it on there. Maybe it's a little stale, but I think it's really apropos. And really the basis of all this is just ensuring that you understand no matter what your student chooses, we want to assist them in that process. And our end goal is just to ensure that your student has found something that they think will make them, in the words of Linus, I think, outrageously happy. We just want them to find their fit, whether that's a 2-year school, a 4-year school, an apprentice program, a full-time job, a part-time job, a gap year, whatever it may be. We don't go into this process with an assumed outcome. We go into it with the thought process that it is your student's path, and we're just here to support them on that path. So let's just see here. Okay, so our goals for tonight, to help you understand how to support your senior, and yes, they're juniors right now, but for all intents and purposes, they're pretty much seniors at this point. We've got about 4 weeks to go, but they're seniors. Before you know it, it'll all be over, unfortunately. The other part, the goal for tonight is to answer questions that you may have about this process and how we can support you. Do a little bit of introductions around the team. If you're not familiar with all the folks that are in this office, our process and the resources associated with it, an actual breakdown of the red folder. And in amongst that, we'll do a little show and tell around Naviance and how to sign into that and how easy it is, as well as a look-see at Common App, which is how your students primarily, if they're applying to college, will apply to college. I would say 99.5% of the schools that your students will be applying to. If they're applying to a four-year school, will be using Common App. We'll touch a little bit about financial aid and scholarships, and then obviously answer any questions you may have. So who's in the team? Okay. Well, it always starts up front, and that's Ms. Dowd and Ms. Hoppin, the two administrative assistants that make this office grind and work. They're amazingly competent and ready and willing to assist you in any questions you may have. Please don't hesitate to phone us up, stop by. You can start coming to the building. I don't mean that right now or all in mass, but we are slowly loosening up the building day by day as things get better. And by next fall, I would imagine you guys would have free access as you've been used to in years past. If you have questions, they're a great resource just to come and see or to give them a ring. If you call the main extension for the counseling office, you'll get either Jess or Ellen. Angie Carlson's our registrar. She takes care of all our standardized testing, and she's our point person for scholarships as well as transcripts. So very important information. We'll talk a little bit about SATs and standardized testing as we go, but there's been some seismic shifts in the landscape of standardized testing in the recent weeks, and I can only imagine it's going to continue on that trend. Ms. P, or Ms. Pelletier, is our school to career coordinator, who's our liaison for Midcoast School of Technology. She's amazing. She's a phenomenal resource that we're blessed to have on campus, and does a great job not only with the MCST kids, but any student for that matter that graces her doorway or her classrooms. She does teach two classes. She teaches a career readiness class, ACES, and also a co-op class that allows your students to access part-time job while still in school and get credits while also earning a paycheck. It's kind of a nice class. So if you know your student is going to carry a job through the school year and would like to earn some applied academic credits while also earning a paycheck, they should sign up for the co-op class, and that's Ms. P's class. The counselors in office, we have Mr. Lammert, Ms. Billington, Mr. Cooper, and myself. And hopefully you've already reached out in some capacity over the last 3 years to your students' respective counselor. If you have questions, if you don't know who their counselor is, please don't hesitate to give us a ring. We'll tell you that information. Hopefully you could just turn to your student and ask them, and they better know. And if they don't, we're in trouble. So please understand that these folks are amazingly talented at what they do. They know a wealth of information and knowledge around this process. And I'm excited to have them as a part of my team. Okay, let me see if I can move some stuff around here. I don't know if you guys see all this stuff, but oops, sorry. Your seniors are still unsure about what they're going to do post high school. I think juniors right now are all over the kind of the map a little bit. There are some juniors that are firmly rooted in their plans and have a strong understanding of what they're going to do. And then there are some kiddos that are a little, let's say, not as far down the line. And then there's some kiddos that are just starting this process of thinking about, life after high school. Don't worry, as the title says. There's plenty of time for your students to figure out where they're going to go. I mean, it took me about 37 years to figure out my path. They've got some time. We're here to encourage and support them. And that's what I ask of you, is that you embrace this process, you lean into it. It's an exploration, a discovery, and encourage your students to continue to talk to people in their lives, whomever it may be, whether it's someone in your faith or a mentor or a coach or their counselor or members of the family. To talk about what they're facing in their process is a great way to get over hurdles. Continue to research post-secondary opportunities all the way up until decisions are made. The more opportunities you place in front of your student, I think the better. Gives them a range of choices to choose from. We will continue to have virtual college visits. I think we'll start to see some reps come back to the building next year, but we've already started booking some. We found that we had tremendous success in getting schools that traditionally don't visit us to set up a virtual visit through Naviance and other means. So schools in California, in the Midwest, in the Deep South, schools that traditionally we weren't able to have a rep meet with our students are now able to meet with our students. It's one of those silver linings that has come through COVID. Of course, we'd love to have reps here in person and we'll encourage them to come in, but I think that's a fluid state and we'll see where that goes. Our process entails Red Folder Night, which is tonight. We'll do a refresh in the first week of school when we get back to school in September. We ask that students, they've had their junior meeting earlier this year, but we ask them and encourage them to come and visit their counselors regularly, whether it's this year or next fall, obviously. You'll have your student will have a senior visit. This is an hour-long visit where we do a pretty intense interview. And what this does is allow us to gain more information as it relates to the writing of our counselor recommendation. I can't emphasize enough how important this is. As an example, UMaine has now shifted to a place where they don't even require teacher recommendations. It is optional, and I encourage you to submit those. But the only recommendation that is now mandatory is the counselor recommendation. I think this is indicative of the college process and the shift that we're seeing in admissions, that shift towards a holistic view of the student. And that's what counselors do. They paint a 3D picture, as it were, of the student through their recommendation. They not only touch upon the academic parts of the student, their GPA, the classes they've taken, maybe some challenges they've overcome, a grade that the student may be extremely proud of, but we also touch upon the community service that that student invested themselves in, or the play that they got that role that they were working so hard for, or their involvement in the band or arts, or their captaincy on the lacrosse team, whatever it may be. But we truly, through that recommendation, look at all aspects of the student and try to really paint that 3D picture of them. And lastly, we work with your students to ensure that everything is tight and buttoned up when they hit their deadline. And as the year progresses, we submit grades, final transcripts, teacher recommendations, all of that information. We'll go through that throughout the presentation tonight. It's a little bit about our process. So the school counseling department and some of the resources that are on tap for you. If you ever came to the office, you'd notice as soon as you walk in, we have a bookshelf full of in-print catalogs for 2- and 4-year colleges. I'm kind of old school that way. I like things that I can, tactilely interact with. And if students are interested in, looking at those, that's something that we keep pretty up to date with new mailers. We have information on gap year and travel programs. And now I want to dive into a little bit on Naviance, which is our post-secondary planning app. First and foremost, I want to show you folks how easy it is to access. And I'm going to do that by screen sharing once again. I'm going to jump on, let's see if I can jump on the web right here and show everyone how truly easy it is, okay? So if I'm on my web page, right? So if I'm in my Google Suite, I need to move some stuff around here so you can see. I know I'm signed into my Google Apps because there's a handsome devil right here in the corner, a picture of me. Or if you don't have your profile pick up, it may be a letter of your first name or your last name, J in my case, or an M. That indicates that I'm signed into my Google Suite so that I can access my Gmail, or and in this case, the apps associated with the Google Suite. So all your student needs to do is, and I'm not going to sign into my email or my calendar because of confidentiality reasons, but this is a great example. I am signed in as indicated by my picture. When I click on the waffle, again, I see that I'm signed in here by my picture. And I see all of these different applications that are associated with the school Google Suite, which if you don't realize your students have access to, they're all here. And as you scroll through, you'll see here is Naviance. If your students to click on that Naviance icon, and bear with me as I pull up our demo page here. Once your student clicked on that Naviance icon, it would bring them to the Naviance landing page. Okay, and I'm going to move this around a little bit. Maybe I can get that out of there. Yeah, great. So your student's name would be, welcome Jeremy, as opposed to Junior. The landing page offers some quick hit stuff. If your student has been building their favorites by hearting stuff, similar to what you would see on social networking pages, that their favorites part would be populated by what they've hearted. It's a nice message from us to you. You can also see that Ms. Dowd put some red folder tasks on here for me today. And then in the task window here, your student would see, oh, here are all the red folder materials that I need in case I need something in particular from the folder and I don't have the actual physical folder in front of me. It's very simple. You're able to click on the packet. And this is the particular part of that folder that deals with organization. As we'll go through it, it's a PDF. Here we are. And there's the senior packet. Very simply done. A couple of clicks and you have the document you need. I'm not going to get too much into Naviance, but understand that Naviance offers many features. I love Supermatch as it's complementary to, let's say, Big Future, which is College Board's search engine for colleges. College Events, which is great in the sense that you can filter out and look for different events. And it's giving me a beta version here, but it gives you all the virtual events that colleges may be offering. And sometimes I've seen that number cap 1,600 events in a given day, from virtual tours of campus to particular departments holding virtual conferences. I think it's just a great way for students to get familiar with their schools. We're not yet there yet to integrate into applying to colleges, but in 2 years' time, we hopefully will be down to a single platform where Naviance is integrated with Common App. Naviance was recently bought by Hobson's, who owns PowerSchool, which is exciting for us because it's further integration. And again, us getting down to that single platform model, which I would love. We do have a scholarship section in here. And we also do have in the scholarship list our local CHRSHS scholarships, easy for me to say. There's always usually a rotating window here of certain different Naviance highlights. If your student is career bound, there's also amazing things about careers. You can explore specific careers or career clusters. This is all tied into the US Labor Department and their statistics and archives. I love Road Trip Nation. These are 7-minute videos from hundreds of individuals in different fields. And basically you build that library by just plugging in what you're interested in, and then it will, or themes that you're interested in, and then it'll expose you to all these videos. These videos are student-based interviews of folks in particular fields, career fields. I think they're really interesting. You can skip to different parts, and the longest I've ever seen one of the videos be is about 8 minutes long, so it's not too tedious. There's always these assessments that your students can take, and we do ask your students to do, and some of them may have already taken some of these assessments in homeroom prior to COVID hitting last year. So they may have those results, but those are great in the sense that, again, it's interlinked to all of the resources within Naviance. So once you find out where your strengths are by using the Strength Explorer, you're able then to look at careers, majors, colleges that offer those majors, just a literal avenue of rabbit holes to jump through and get the information that your student may be looking for. So that's Naviance. I just wanted to quickly show you that and show you how easy it is to get there. Again, It's clicking on the waffle, making sure you're signed in, and then going down to the Naviance icon and clicking on that, which will then bring you to the Naviance homepage. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Okay, so that's Naviance. We also recommend that your students start and create a College Board account. This will allow them to access all the features that College Board offers around their testing and sending scores. As I'll allude to later in the presentation, colleges, if they are taking standardized test scores going forward, want to see those scores submitted to them from College Board, not from us, not from the student, but directly from College Board. So it's great to start that account now and be able to see your scores as they populate that account. You'll be able to see your PSAT scores, as well as any SAT scores that you've sat for, probably at the April test or in the fall when you sit for it again, if you choose to do so. A lot of students love Big Future, and if you attended the financial aid night, Maria McDougall showed you a little bit of the functionality of Big Future. I really like it too. The one piece that Naviance kind of trumps Big Future on is that it's integrated to all our data. So it already has your students' GPA, their test scores, classes, and things of that sort. And if your student is building a profile on Naviance, that information is immediately plugged into some college search functions that they may access. In addition, this year we're having seniors fill out surveys through Naviance. So we're building up a database within Naviance that's particular to our school. So students will be able to see, the track record of, let's say, Camden Hills Regional High School students that applied to Vassar. It doesn't give you specific information, but it gives you the average GPA, the average SAT of students that applied to Vassar. And then it will also give you outcomes. How many of those students were accepted? How many enrolled? How many were denied? I think that's important as you vet your choices and build your list to understand that, yes, colleges interact with high schools in different ways. They do, have their favorites, as it were. And sometimes they're a little bit more familiar with us and know how awesome our students are and, are, let's say, more accepting of them, no pun intended. But it's helpful to have that inside information on how our students do. And that's only through Naviance, not through Big Future. But I don't want to discourage you from using Big Future because it's really strong. So let's talk about the actual red folder. Okay. The red folder, regardless of your post-secondary aspiration, is for everyone. There is some information in there. I think, it is slanted a little bit more towards the 2-year and 4-year college student, but there is information in there for folks that are looking at, we're going right into the workforce, how to build a resume, some information on job searching, also some information on the military and different branches of the military and how to contact a recruiter. So please don't just assume that if your student's not going to a 2 or 4-year school that the red folder isn't for you. It is. Deadlines, deadlines, deadlines. I'm going to talk a little bit about deadlines in a few minutes, but I want you to understand in the red folder, as we go through it, you'll see a deadlines chart. What we've done is shown you our deadline versus the university deadline. So if a school has a November 1 deadline, we would like your student to submit all of their information to us, and I'll talk about that information in a second, 10 school days prior to that date. So literally 2 weeks, 2 calendar weeks prior to November 1. Why? That allows us to be sure that we have everything we need prior to that deadline. And better yet, that your student has everything they need to meet that deadline. I can't tell you how stressful it is to have a student run in October 29th or October 31st, or whatever it may be. Mr. Marks, I'm going to apply. I need November 1 tomorrow, and I need your recommendation. There's no way I'm going to be able to write as good of a recommendation as I could have had the student submitted all their information 10 days prior, 10 school days prior. So please pay attention to that chart. It's shown on it's on the left-hand side of the folder that gives you all of the typical deadline dates, November 1, December 1, November 15th, I believe is in there, and then our associated internal deadline. If you don't have your red folder and you're looking to do this digitally, I just showed you how to get into Naviance. If you scan over, you'll see, if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see that you can access the red folder documents digitally there, or in the My Planner tab, and you'll be able to see all those documents there. So let's talk about what's on the left and the right. So the right side of the folder is all information that, or tasks that we'd like the student to complete and then submit back to us. On the left side is much more informationally based. So we have college application calendar checklist, so a timeline, as it were, of senior year and where your students should be at certain parts of the year. The red folder deadlines that I just mentioned, the 10 school days prior to the deadline for application submissions are in there. Information about recommendations, which we'll go over tonight. The responsibilities that are doled out between the student, the school, and the parents. Information on Common App. We're going to look at that as well tonight. SAT and ACT testing deadlines, so registration and test dates. And those are tentative dates, and as is with the time of COVID, everything is due to change. So please pay attention to College Board website or ACT website if you're getting closer to registering, to make sure that you have the correct dates. Those dates were pulled recently, but as it says on the bottom, on both of those are tentative dates. Other contacts for post-secondary plans, some of which I just talked about, job searching or military contacts. Information on financial aid, which you can also find on our website, which I'll show tonight as well. The infamous CSS profile. And for those of you that have students that are applying to highly competitive colleges with large endowments that supply 100% need met, and you would know what all that means if you attended financial aid night 2 weeks ago. And if you don't, come in, let's talk about it. But the CSS profile is a necessary evil for you folks that are applying to those particular schools. I apologize in advance. Unofficial transcripts, we do not have that in the red folder right now because the school year hasn't finished. So we would be giving you a document that was incomplete, as it were. At the end of the school year, we will be sending hard copy versions of not only the report card, but your transcript to every student in the building, regardless of the grade. But we will also be posting that transcript on your student's individual Naviance page in their document file, and they can access that either through their profile on My Planner or through the front page if they scroll down to the bottom where it says My Documents. So let's go through some of the responsibilities that students have as they pertain to the process of applying to college. Develop an organizational system, okay? And really try to stick to that timeline that I mentioned. I've worked with many students that have had many different organizational systems. I had a student in Spain at the private school I worked at that literally showed up on our first meeting with a binder, I think about this thick, full of different tabs and different sections for all the schools that she was interested in, pictures, notes that she had taken, all sorts of mailers that she had received in each section for their particular schools. It was a sight to see, this binder. I don't recommend going that route unless you're that kind of person, and it just seemed really big and hard to lug around. What I would recommend is developing an Excel sheet or a Google sheet. It's just a really easy way to track how things are progressing. You can plug in all your school names, their associated deadlines, documents that you need to get, documents that you've already gotten, dates associated with different things that you've asked, let's say feedback sheets or parent brag sheets, all that kind of information, maybe anecdotal notes that the student has on each university. And it's all in that digital file on one place on their computer in an Excel file. If Excel is not your thing, maybe it's Post-its on a wall, color coded. Maybe it's a giant whiteboard. Whatever it may be, get organized. I can't emphasize this enough. The fall is going to be stressful enough. Being disorganized and not knowing where things are, or having to search for everything you need all the time, can add to that stress level. Do yourself a favor, students. Take this summer to figure out what organizational system you'll use and then commit to it. Schedule meetings as needed with counselors, okay? Some students are really self-sufficient. They're good to go. They have come in, they know what they want. Maybe they have an outside counselor that's assisting them. Maybe they have a brother or sister that's already gone through this process. And so they don't really need as much from us as some other students who may come in every day. I've had students like that, and I welcome those students. They're a lot of fun to work with. That's what we're here for. Literally, that's our job, to assist your students in their needs and to advocate for what they need. Bottom line is, make appointments, schedule meetings, drop in, whatever it may be, use us as a resource. And when I say us, the counseling office as well as your individual counselor. Make sure you're reviewing all those materials and completing the paperwork in the red folder. Schedule that senior interview 10 days, at least 10 school days prior to that first application deadline. Complete all applications and supplements for their colleges by the deadline. Send SAT scores directly to the colleges from College Board. And well, I'll just break into that caveat now. I don't know if folks were paying attention, but about 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks ago, the California University System, so we're talking UCLA, Cal Berkeley, any of those UC schools, let it be known that they will no longer need the SAT or ACT in their process, which is pretty groundbreaking. It's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, university system in the United States, and they are committing to no longer using the SAT or mandating that students submit the SAT. Now, if your student has scored exceptionally well on the SAT, should you send it? Absolutely. But if your student hasn't, or you feel like, standardized testing is really not indicative of who I am, or my score is not who I am, you are seeing more and more universities opting away from that option. That does mean that your student is going to have to present themselves in a more robust way, a well-rounded way, really truly understanding, have I identified my profile and have I pointed that out through my application process and articulated that? Students' responsibilities are also to request letters of recommendation. We're going to talk a little bit about that later. We ask that as students are going to do paper applications for particular schools, and there are still some schools that drive off of just paper, that if you want us to send your recommendations, your transcript, all that kind of official information and information that is sealed, because as part of this process, students, you are going to waive your rights to seeing recommendations, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we get into Common App. We'll send that for you, but you need to bring us addressed, stamped envelopes, and then we'll take care of the rest from there on out. Your essays, I think predominantly every single junior English class, I think, that's in the building. I'm not talking about if your student is taking an aspirational UMaine course, but if they're in the building for their English and in their junior year, they should be working on these essays if they haven't already. So if you haven't had that conversation with your student, please do. And as we get into the Common App, you'll be able to see that you can see the prompts already. And that's why we wanted to do this spring meeting. We wanted you to understand that using your summer effectively is, again, a great tool against stress in the fall. We can't emphasize it enough. Use your summer effectively. Does that mean you need to be working on your red folder and your Common App every day? No. And I don't want you to do that. None of us do. We want you to relax, enjoy your summer, refresh. But there are going to be times where you could spend an hour or two here and there over the next 2 months working on your application so that it's less that you have to do next fall. And essays are a huge part of that. If you think you're going to want to interview and your school does, the schools that you're interested do accept interviews, and you know you do well in person, schedule an interview. Some schools are, it is required. Very few of those schools that it's required. But other schools may give you the opportunity. If they're not a main school, it will probably be an alumni that will be doing that interview. But it's always a good opportunity for those students that do really well in those spoken formats. Submit scholarship applications, and we have a whole night, just like we have red folder, we have white folder, and that's in February. So please attend that and submit your scholarships. Usually around April 1, May 1 is the deadline for most scholarships. And then submit fees. While Common App is the way that your student will apply to multiple schools using one application primarily, they still have to pay for each school individually. If your student or your family qualifies for a free and reduced lunch, it doesn't mean that you're receiving a free and reduced. All you have to do is qualify for it. Please tell your counselor, and they will walk you through the steps in order for you to submit for a fee waiver on Common App, which then waives all those fees and makes those applications free. A lot of schools with COVID have waived their fees. Please just check their website to see if that is true for the particular schools that you're applying to. So deadlines. Talked a lot about deadlines tonight in terms of getting to us 10 school days prior to your school's deadline. But I want to talk to you about why that's so important. In the college admissions process and financial aid and scholarship world, deadlines are deadlines. There are no extensions or exceptions. I have literally had students come, in my time, running into my office November 2nd. Oh my God, Mr. Morris, I forgot, or I meant to apply and I didn't. We've called the university and they've said, sorry, the deadline was November 1. Please pay attention to these deadlines, students. It is your responsibility to submit on time. There is a distinction by received by or submitted by. If the deadline says received by, that means they need to have the materials in hand by that date. So if it was a November 1 date, that they have received that information by November 1. If it's a submitted by deadline, then it's postmarked. You're running to the post office to submit, or you hit electronically 11:59 on November 1. You've made the deadline. You've submitted by. There are 3 different types of deadlines that we want you to know, or what we call admissions decision deadlines. Early decision, early action, and regular admittance. Early decision, okay, is a binding decision. You can only apply to one school per early decision period. And this is where it's going to get a little tricky, so hang on with me. Especially during COVID, schools have utilized early decision more so than ever before. We are seeing numbers from universities reporting close to 30% of their incoming class has been accepted through early decision or early action windows. Why is this? Well, universities are always working to maximize their yield. That is the number between the number of students they have accepted and the number of students that have enrolled. Schools ideally would love to have 100% yield. No school ever does. Maybe Princeton, who knows? But they understand if we maximize our yield, we have revenue coming in the door. And this is where it gets kind of a little ugly in the sense that, yes, universities are, most of them are nonprofit, and yes, they're an institution of higher learning. They are also have a bottom line, and they are also a business. and their revenue is generated through tuition and room and board. So they need to hit their numbers. So early decision locks in some numbers for them. Why this is so evident now is because a lot of schools have now started using what's called an ED2 window. And that early decision window, that second window, is usually January 1 or February 1, ironically enough, at the same time as their regular admit window. So read between the lines, folks. This is allowing them to lock in their yield, to understand that they've got these students that they accept through an early decision binding agreement in hand. Your students should really understand if they apply to that one school ED and they get in, that's where they're going, regardless of the financial aid packet that they get. Please understand that. You need to do your homework around these early decisions. It may be your number one dream school, but you've got to make sure that you can afford it. In very few and rare cases have I seen where students have appealed to get out of their early decision agreement and universities have let them. Please also know that these universities communicate with one another. You're not going to pull the wool over their eyes. So if you do get in early decision, and yes, you do apply early action somewhere else or regular admit, and then you end up attending or try to attend one of those schools as opposed to your early decision schools, they're going to talk to each other. That's going to be found out. And then your acceptances from all those schools that are in question will be rescinded. Please do not play around with this. Now, if your student is eager to get this process over and they want to apply early action is the way they should go. This is a non-binding admissions decision. It allows them to apply using those early dates of November 1 or December 1. And in some cases, like UMaine, it's advantageous for students to apply using the early action window of December 1. Why? Because there's money tied to it. If your student hits a certain GPA and has a certain testing scores, they may be eligible for, I believe, $2,000 in institutional aid just by applying early action. Again, you can apply to multiple schools and none of them are binding. I really don't recommend early decision or early action for any students that are looking to use their senior year grades to bolster their profile. Only students that are coming out of their junior year feeling really secure about their GPA, where it sits, and possibly their testing scores should use these windows. Why? Because your semester 1 grades from senior year won't be reported to these schools until possibly after they've made their decisions. Yes, we'll send those quarter 1 grades, but those are unofficial and only give those schools a small snapshot of what you have accomplished your senior year. So if you are a student that's looking to bolster your profile by your senior course choices and the grades that you'll receive in those courses, hold off. Wait, use that regular admit, or maybe use that early action 2 window or early decision 2 window and get those first semester grades on your transcript, which will affect your GPA and also give those universities a better picture of who you are right now as a student. While I said that 30% of students were accepted in early action and early decision, statistics are funny that way. It sounds like a big number, but if you flip it the other way, that means that 70% are still accepted through regular admit windows. 70 is always bigger than 30. So you still have a great chance of getting into that school. What I would also recommend, if you are going to go regular admit, is that you look for ways to demonstrate or to capture what's called demonstrated interest. By applying early, you indicate to universities that you're interested in attending. Again, it gets back to that yield, the likelihood of you enrolling if you're accepted. With regular admit, that isn't a part of your application deadline. You're applying at the regular time. But if you've attended one of their virtual campus visits, you've gone on their websites multiple times, maybe you've had a direct chat with one of their admissions officers on the website. They document all of that information. And for many schools, they use that as what's called as a metric called demonstrated interest. I can tell you that Bates uses demonstrated interest in their decision-making process. Again, if we accept this student, are they going to enroll? Demonstrated interest is a way for them to feel a little bit more confident about that decision. So Common App, okay? And I'm gonna, again, like I did with Naviance, gonna navigate it away from the presentation and onto Common App. So bear with me while I switch pages. But before I do that, I want you to understand that Common App is the primary application resources for applying to college. Like I said, somewhere in the range of 99.5% of the schools that your students will apply to will be done so through Common App. It's easy to use. We're very familiar with it. It's how your students will get recommendations submitted to their universities that they're applying to. It's how we'll upload grades and transcripts. It's also how your students or we will upload supplemental documents, and that always also pertains to students that get waitlisted. We use Common App to send materials from the spring term maybe that are helping students get off that wait list. So let me navigate away from my presentation and try to share some information about Common App. Okay, hey Naviance. All right, so here's the Common App website. Really simple stuff. CommonApp.org, it's right here in the bar, okay? Pretty simplistic kind of landing page. And for you guys, you want to create an account, okay? Simply click on that and it will bring you to a step-by-step procedure. All of your students are first year students. So you click on that first year. And then again, it's going to step-by-step push you through this process, okay? Here's where you need to make sure you're paying attention, okay? Right here, which describes you best. Applying as a first-year student and plan to start in college in 2020 or 2021. That's none of you, okay? Your students are looking at 2022. 2021 is this year, it's this fall. If your student clicks here, builds out their Common App, spends a tremendous amount of time all summer doing all the things they do, guess what? August 1, Common App's gonna wipe that whole account. It's gonna be gone and everything will be lost. Sorry. The devil's in the detail. So please, please, please make sure when your students are signing up, they click planning to start college in 2022, fall of next year, okay? I'm gonna try and sign into my page now, and I have a dummy account, so let's go back here. So bear with me. Success, I love it. All right, so when your student creates that account, it will automatically bring you in the landing page always for Common App is the dashboard page. And you can see I've already put some colleges on here. I'm a proud Fordham alum. So of course I have that on there. And I love Macalester College. And I put that on there just to kind of plant some seeds, folks. It's in St. Paul, Minnesota. It's a great school, small, private. St. Paul is a great town if you've ever been there. But I always like to encourage folks to understand that there are places other than Boston that have universities and colleges that are exceptional. So please, if your students are looking for a change of pace, head west. There's a lot of schools out there that are looking for students from the great state of Maine. So anytime your student wants to add colleges, you can see that I have already my 2 colleges here. It's very simple. As I said, it's a very easy to use format. Add a college. Let's go here, Northeastern. Okay. As I'm typing, it brings it up. That's me. I'm also an alum of Northeastern. Go Huskies. Add to my colleges. Go back to my college list. There it is, Northeastern. Go back to my dashboard, and there's Northeastern. Okay. You can see for Fordham, I have a deadline in there. If I want to add an admissions plan, it'll give me a quick way to do it. Again, because we're still in school year 2021, if your student's building out an account and they click that, all right, it'll get scrubbed. So please, if they're seeing only that option, they've created an account where they've said they intend to start school this fall. It should give you the option of 2022 if you've done it right. Okay, and I started this account in the fall, so that's why it's showing them. Okay, your preferred admissions plans, here's that infamous early decision too. Okay, whatever it may be, and if you intend to pursue financial aid. Schools will often say that their process is need blind. Don't listen to them. They see that you're applying for financial aid or not. And yes, some universities will tell the truth and say, yes, we do look at that in our decision-making processes. And some schools will play that line, the standard line, no, we don't look at that. They all do. Trust me when I say that. So my colleges, my dashboard, and then the Common App part. And I want to show you this because often students will see, okay, yeah, on the personal information, I fill in all this information, continue, but they don't realize, oh, there's all these other drop-down windows that I need to fill in. Only when they have a green check have they completed that drop-down window. Once they have all those check marks in here, the Common App part of the application is done. And here's all your sections here as well, okay? I love showing this because if you're gonna look and you can see all the universities I have require the essay, and here are the prompts. Use your summer effectively. As you read through these prompts, you'll see a lot of them are what I refer to as before and after prompts. The lessons we take from obstacles we encounter can be fundamental to later success. Recount a time when you faced a challenge, a setback, or a failure. How did it affect you? What did you learn from that experience? Before, event, after. Okay? Reflect on a time when you questioned a challenge or belief. Talk about a failure. It's a lot of before and afters. The one thing that I do like is that you can scroll all the way down and share an essay on any topic of your choice. It can be one that you've already written, i.e. what you're doing in English class right now, folks, or one that responds to a prompt that you feel really is more directed towards who you are as a student. Students, please listen as I say this. Do not assume you know what they're looking for in terms of an essay. Do not write for an intended audience. Write the essay that best lends your voice to this application. This is the opportunity that universities have to understand who you are as a person. While yes, it should be an academically written essay, beginning, a middle, and end, grammar, spelling, punctuation, all that stuff should be on point. Don't make silly errors in areas where you don't need to. But also understand that this is an opportunity for your voice to shine through, who you are as a person. Don't assume you know what they're looking for. Write from the heart. Be funny if you want to. Take a comic bend if that's who you are. Use it. If you're a more serious person, then be serious. But understand this essay is an opportunity for you to shed light on who you are and what you may be about, and maybe to exemplify why you're such a great fit for that particular university, because you understand what their student body is about and what their mission is, and you fit perfectly into that. Again, not assuming that they're going to read that and see that, but that when you read your essay and that you've written it, it fits to that. I'll use Bates as another example. When they're doing their application review, they read the essay first. Why? because it gives them a flavor for whom they're dealing with. Who is this person? Great, they have a 3.8 GPA. Great that they took, 5 gazillion APs. Great that they joined all these clubs. Who are they? And I can tell you in the case of Bates, they're really looking for students that fit, the ideal Bates student. So they use the essay to get that first initial read, who this person is. If you're still building out your list, and maybe you've done that in Naviance and you've favorited some schools there, or Big Future, or you're using the old school Big Books, whatever it may be, you have a list on pen and paper, you can also search these schools in here. And again, it's as simple as starting to type in, let's see if we can have it. Let's see. Okay, there it is. Harvey Mudd, great school in California. University of Charleston. I don't know why they put that in for Harvard, but there it is in Harvard University. Okay, and you can just click on a school. I want to add it to my list. It's done. Let me go back to my dashboard. Okay, and there's Harvey Mudd, great school, part of the Five Sisters out in California. All right. What's also another resource on here is financial aid resource, and it's all, the beauty of this is all on one platform, and links to all the different types of information you may need. If you were at the financial aid night, you heard about Maria talk about, make sure you're on the free federal student aid page. If you're paying for FAFSA completion, you're on the wrong page. And a good way to avoid that is just using that link here in Common App. I hope this gives you a little bit of an introduction to Common App and exemplifies why it's so easy. The one last thing I did want to point out, here's the Common App part, the thing that you have to fill out only once for all your schools, but also understand for each school, there are idiosyncratic parts of the application that they may require. A supplemental essay, they may have questions that they have that are specific to the university, okay? Things of that sort, okay? They may have some writing questions. Here's a supplemental, okay? This is what a supplemental for Harvey Mudd looks like. It's 500 words. Tell us why you want to apply to Harvey Mudd. Again, they're trying to suss out, are you a fit for our campus? Are you a part of the cohort that we're building for the freshman year? Okay, so, and they actually give you 2 supplementary essays that they want you to fill out. Okay, understand each college is different from one another. I want to talk a little bit about FERPA and why this is important. Before you can invite any of your teachers for recommendations, you must fill out your FERPA and waive your release. Basically, what you're doing is waiving your right to see your application materials, in particular your recommendations. Why do universities want you to do this? You can elect to not waive your rights, but it does put up a red flag for the universities. They wonder, well, why do you want to see what teachers have written about you? Or are you trying to unduly influence your teachers to write positive recommendations about you because they see that you haven't waived your FERPA rights? Please understand that the common procedure is to waive your rights. It's just what it is, doing business these days and applying to college. You can invite your recommenders simply filling out the information here. It'll then populate right in here, invite your counselor, because most schools only have one counselor recommendation. As soon as you populate or invite your counselor, it will automatically populate this area. Manage recommenders allows you to build a database, and there's Ms. Campbell, it's my better half, okay? If some of you who don't know, she's a great teacher down in the art department. So when I go to the teacher section, you can see for this particular school, Harvey Mudd, they require 2 teacher recommendations, no optional. They don't want any more than 2. I can choose Ms. Campbell, and if I had built out a larger list of teachers, I would have all the teachers that were in there in terms of recommenders I wanted to use. Please, folks, when you click on the name, you then have to assign, okay? Sometimes students think, okay, I've done that. I'm all good. You're not until you see this, okay? Once you've assigned the teacher, you'll see that teacher's now going to get an email from me, all right? It gives you a status update on where they are with that, and you can refresh and resend if you'd like. You can also remove. Okay, I'm going to remove. See you later. This year, I think, this fall, they started adding the advisor category, which is great because all of you have advisors or homeroom teachers that maybe you developed a relationship with. You can always invite another recommender who's a coach or a supervisor on a job site, and you can see for Harvey Mudd, one is optional. It's not required. The advisor is something that you can submit on your behalf. Again, if it's a positive recommendation, it further builds out your profile. I recommend that you use it. All right, folks, so that's Common App. Let me get back to my presentation here. Okay. All right. I hope everyone's still awake. All right, so senior feedback forms. So as I said, there was the left side of the folder, which was purely informational, and then the right side, which is forms that your student needs to complete and get back to us. The senior feedback forms are simple checklist forms. They do have a little paragraph if someone would like to write a little essay or something, a paragraph about the student, but they're really simple forms. They're easy to fill out. These should be given to a wide variety of adults. Maybe it's your favorite Uncle Louie. Maybe it's your coach. Maybe it's your boss that you really have a great relationship with, or maybe it's a clergy member, whomever. They're easy to fill out. Please have them either send it directly back to us or to give it back to you to bring to us. But these are important, students, because these, again, don't go anywhere other than to the counselor and help us tremendously in building out our recommendation. The more information you give us, the better. The student brag sheet. This is where your students have an opportunity to talk about themselves and pat themselves on the back. This is not the time to be humble. We want to hear about everything that you've accomplished. Now, please remember, we don't want to hear about the spelling bee you won in 6th grade. That's awesome. Good for you. But what we do want to hear about is stuff that you've accomplished in high school. Now, if you've started something, let's say you started dancing when you were in 4th grade, and you've continued to dance all the way up and through high school, and it's a huge part of who you are. Yes, of course, we want to hear about that. We want to hear about all the great accomplishments that are associated with that. If you made honor roll one semester out of all the 7 semesters that you've been here when you become a senior, great, tell us that. If there's some sort of award that you won through an outside organization, if you're in the Boy Scouts or whatever it may be, please include that in the student brag sheet. Again, this is an opportunity for us as counselors to have more information to put into our recommendation. The parent brag sheet is always a pretty simple one to get back. And they do come back in volume. Parents, and rightly so, love talking about their kiddos and all that they have accomplished and how very proud they are of them. Parents, lay it on thick. Tell us everything that you think is awesome about your kiddo, everything you can think of. We'll sort through what we can use and what we can't use. But if you don't put it down, we won't know. And we can't do anything with what we don't know. We don't know what we don't know. Teacher recommendations. So I talked about the feedback sheets, and those are you can give to anyone that you haven't asked for a recommendation. The ideal number of recommendations that we tell students to solicit is 2. Ideally, you'd have one of those recommendations from an area of content or study that's associated with the student's major. So let's say they're applying with an engineering major. You would want one of those recommendations to ideally come from, let's say, their physics teacher or their math teacher, to demonstrate that the student is at a level of preparedness and will exceed or excel, I should say, in that major once they're accepted. The teacher's recommendations are really a viewpoint for the university to understand how the student functions in the classroom, how they work as an academic. The other recommendation of the two should be maybe a balancing act. So if you are applying to, let's say, a liberal arts college for business, one of your recommendations should be from the math science area, particularly math. Maybe you took economics with Ms. Heath or something of that sort. Entrepreneurialism, that'd be great, directly associated content area of study to the major. The balance recommendation would come from a humanities-based class, an English teacher, a history teacher, an art teacher. We ask that when students are looking at recommenders, that they look specifically to their junior year. And why we say that is because in the junior year is the full year snapshot closest to when the student will be attending the university. So that has validity for the universities in terms of who that student is and where they are in terms of their skill attainment and their ability to succeed in the classroom. If you're getting a recommendation from your freshman year English teacher, Ms. Forrester, who is awesome, it was 3 years ago. Universities aren't really going to be that interested in what you did as a freshman because you're a much different person now than you were 3 years ago. Think about it for a second. I think you'll agree. So 2 recommenders. Now, if you're applying to a school that's strictly an engineering school, maybe you want both of those recommendations to come from the math science area. Makes perfect sense. It's an engineering school, it's specific to the major. Those you're further validating, I'm ready to tackle principles of engineering or whatever it may be at that level. But having a balanced perspective is always a good idea. Showing that you're not a one-trick pony, that you're a well-rounded student, that you can excel in areas of interest as well as areas that you were mandated to take in order to graduate. There are going to be some courses, students, that you have to take at the university level because it's a part of your degree. It just is. Okay? I hate math. No offense to anyone that loves math out there. I had to do 2 years of math at Northeastern, begrudgingly, but I did it and I got through it. Liberal arts colleges are going to ask you to do those kind of things too. And so they're going to want to know that you can do things that you love and that you're passionate about, as well as take care of business and subject areas that maybe aren't as interesting to you. The etiquette that we ask for you in terms of asking recommenders to fill a recommendation is simple. The student should approach their recommenders personally. A face-to-face conversation. How novel is that? Hey, Mr. Doubleday, I would love for you to write me a letter of recommendation. I'm applying to Lehigh. It's my #1 school, and I could really use a recommendation from you. More likely than not, if your student feels like that's the person that they want to get a recommendation to, it's going to be a mutual feeling. Students have a pretty keen idea of who they interact well with and who they may not. And so trust your students' judgment around whom they're asking. You may want to guide them a little bit, but trust their judgment. Why we ask you to do that in person is that if the faculty member cannot, in their mind, write you a positive letter of recommendation, ethically, they should say no. And they should say it in a nice way, but they should say no. That allows the student to have a conversation, understand where they are, I got a yes or I got a no, and then move on to the next step. The next step is sending that cold send from Common App. It's a blanket email, it's very general, it populates their inbox, it does use the student's name and that you're requesting a recommendation. However, if the student hasn't had that conversation with the teacher prior to, one, the teacher may not like that you just sent them a solicitation of a recommendation, assuming that they would say yes. They may not. Secondly, some teachers that are extremely popular with students, Ms. Benson teaches at the junior level, students love her, it's good reason, she's an amazing teacher. She may be full, she may have a cap limit. I'm only gonna write, 15 recommendations this year, given that she probably has 50 juniors in a given year. So if the students had that conversation, they understand where they are. If they just send that email, Ms. Benson maybe is, I'm hit my limit. I'm just going to ignore that email, or I'm going to reply. It gives you the option to say no without ever having that conversation with the student. So please, students, take a minute, walk down to the classroom, or stay after class, or arrive early to class and ask your teachers personally before you send that solicitation from Common App. At the end of this process, please understand that teachers are doing this in addition to all that they're doing. And especially in a year like this year, sending them a short thank you note at the end of the year to show your appreciation for their extra effort, for putting in a good word on your behalf, will go a long way. Who knows? You may need another recommendation from them down the road. Transcript request form, okay? So this form is pretty important to us because it insulates us against a couple of different things, okay? And I'm gonna bring up the form and here's what it looks like. This is on the right side of the folder. It should be the last sheet in all those things that we've asked you to complete. This is how we build our internal lists. Now, we have access, and once your student has requested the counselor, we have access to your students' lists within Common App. However, like I said earlier, there are some schools that don't use Common App. And if that's the case, we need to make sure that we have highlighted that in our internal tracking system. And this request form helps us do that. On the left-hand side, you can see CAO, that's Common Application Online. If it is a school, let's say Northeastern right here, I check this, it is a Common App. Let's say this school right here, I believe Gordon College is not on Common App, and they require a paper app. You would not check here, but you would give us all that information for that university, inclusive of the application, ever important application deadline. This list is fluid. You can change it as many times as you want, but understand, if you're looking to make your senior interview, that is going to be a question you get from the front desk. Have you turned in your transcript request form? If you want to make that senior interview and having not completed the request form, but you want to use that interview to help you build out that request form, that's fine. But please indicate that. They will ask you that question. So if you have it, it's great. Get it in, use it as an impetus to signing up. Maybe the day that you bring in all your feedback forms, your brag sheets, the request form is the day that then you set your senior interview 10 school days prior to your first deadline. As with most documents that we have here at the high school, we're going to ask the student to sign, and we're also going to ask the parent and guardian to sign. Okay, students, this is your process, and I can't say that enough. It is your process. However, your parents know a thing or two, and they can be helpful, believe it or not. Especially if you've had older siblings that have gone through this process and maybe not as willing to help, your parents have gone through it already. So we want to make sure that they're engaged in a part of the process. This kind of begs out, and here's a tip for students, a way in which to help your parents. You ready? Start a Gmail account just for applying to college. Why do I say to do this? Well, it really helps in keeping your parents informed. Why? Because you give them the sign-in information as well as you having the sign-in information. You use it for all your applications, not only for college, but also for scholarships, so that those conversations, when the parents come to you and say, where are you with your application? Or have you done this or done that? They can have a better understanding because they're receiving the same information you are through that email address. I can't tell you how helpful it has been for many students and parents to have that specialized Gmail or whatever free email account you want to use specifically dedicated to this process. Jeremy's application email could be the address, whatever it may be. Universities are used to this kind of thing. It'll also give you an opportunity to have your decision sent to that email so your parents can see the decision at the same time you see that decision. Just a really good way around making sure that both of you, meaning parents and student, have a clear form of communication and that you're working together. Speaking of parents, what are the parents' responsibilities? Number one is to encourage and support. This process is trickier than ever. At the beginning of the year, I assigned a book to our counseling staff, and I thought it was going to, unwrap all these answers because it was highly touted as an individual who had buried himself in 4 different admissions offices. Basically, what it confirmed to us is that this process is as random as it ever has been. There is no definitive answers as to why schools choose certain students over others. We're not in the room when they're making these decisions. And quite frankly, decisions are made multiple times. A student could be in the accept pile, and then they revisit that application, and that student moves to the wait list. Then they move to the deny. Then they go back to the wait list pile, and then they go back to the accepted pile. The only thing you see is a letter telling you that you got in. You didn't realize that at one point you were actually denied. This process is frustrating sometimes. I've seen students apply to schools that I thought they hit dead on in terms of targeting for their grade point average, SAT, all the attributes, the profile was there, and not get in. I've seen students not get into any university they've applied except for maybe one. I've seen students being waitlisted to every single one of their schools. I've seen students get into every single school that I thought they had no chance of getting into. It really is a crapshoot sometimes. And sometimes the decisions just don't make sense. So if your student does get a no from that dream school that they've been looking to go to, maybe since they were in first grade, who knows? Or it's a legacy school in the family, please be there to support them and encourage them. And understand that where you go to university or college or 2-year school or where you get your apprentice degree does not define who you are. It's just a part of the puzzle. Make sure that your student and parent responsibilities have been clearly defined. There's boundaries. Boundaries make for healthy relationships. Visit college campuses. Schools are opening up. And I would imagine during the summer when there's no students on campus, they're much more likely to welcome you on campus post-COVID, especially if you are fully vaccinated. Complete the parent brag sheet, help with the Common App, the demographic information, which is basically, the vitals of where you live and all that kind of stuff. Understand that the financial aid process is one that's troubling and hard and that you're going to need to be involved. So if you need to get your taxes in line or submit your taxes, if you haven't done that yet, please do so. Your students are going to be reliant on that. Start researching scholarships. And, George Benson, I think is in the audience, has told us numerous times over the last year how amazing his son's effort was in gaining, it was believed somewhere in the neighborhood of 76 different scholarships that allowed him to attend his first year of school free, basically. Scholarships are huge. There's a lot of money out there. So please attend White Boulder in February next year. Celebrate successes and support disappointments, just as I started. You're going to be the best support mechanism that your students can have. Please be that, a support. What we'll do for your students, okay? We'll send official transcripts. We'll send grades starting after your student applies, okay? So if your student applies December 1, we'll start sending grades from that point on, okay? Obviously, we're not going to send grades prior to your student applying because they haven't applied yet, so we don't know if that's a reality. But once they apply, from that date on, we will start sending grades. So juniors, soon to be seniors, stay away from that senior lull, okay? If you can, please. We will be sending grades all the way through your senior year, up until your final transcript. We will also send the CHRHS profile. It's a snapshot of our school. Usually we put it in the red folder, but again, that information is not complete, so we'll give that out next fall. Your counselor's confidential letter, we'll send that, okay, via Common App or in hard copy. And just a little note on the final transcript. At the end of the year, we send out final transcripts for every student that has applied and indicated to us that they're going to a 2 or 4 year school. We send those July 1. Very often, right before that date or right after that date, we will get frantic emails from students saying, my university told me that you haven't sent my transcript. We have sent it. What commonly happens is that, especially with bigger schools, and I'll use Northeastern as an example, 60,000 applicants, they accept 5,000 for the class. There's a lot of paperwork there. There's a lot of files. So often what we do is when students call us panicked about their final transcript, we'll say, have you contacted the admissions office? No, I have not. Well, please do so. And usually what happens is they phone up Northeastern Admissions. Hello, my name is Jeremy Marks. I've received a notice that you haven't received my final transcript. Can you please check my file to make sure that it is there? Because I can see on Common App that you downloaded it. Or my school has told me that they have downloaded it and have confirmation of it. Usually they'll put you on hold. They'll go and check that file wherever it is. They'll come back and say, yes, we actually do have that. They send those emails in general to get people panicked, to solicit, to make sure that they get those transcripts, because that is what validates that the student actually graduated from high school and is eligible to attend the university that following fall. Again, we will send these transcripts. Don't worry. Okay, financial aid. All right. And I'm going to go a little faster now because really, hopefully you attended FA night. And if you haven't watched the recording, it's on the website. But October 1 is the filing date. If you filed prior to October 1, you'll be filing for this school year. So hold off, wait until October 1, and then hit submit on that FAFSA form. Usually Midcoast School of Technology does a FAFSA completion night. So if your kiddo's a MCST attendee, great. Head on over there. You'll know when it is. We usually post that as well. It's a great event. It's really helpful. Check to see if your school requires the CSS profile. Again, for highly competitive schools that have large endowments that are 100% need met, you can count on needing to file the CSS profile. Again, FAME is a great resource for this. FameMaine.com is right there. It's a great website. If you go onto our website and you visit the counseling page, you'll see there's a financial aid tab on the counseling page. All of this information and more is there with links for all that information. So please use that if you need to in order to get your financial aid completed and filed. Scholarships. As I said, there's a tremendous amount of money that goes unclaimed. There are a couple of different types of scholarships. National scholarships are these kind of things. The Coca-Cola scholarship, ExxonMobil scholarship, Taco Bell scholarship, any scholarship that universities will give you for athletics, things of that sort. Speaking of, or just watching Cole Anderson on TV, for those of you who know him, he's a golfer down at the Florida State University, competing in the college championships and doing quite well, representing Windjammers. Yeah. All right. Community service. There's a lot of scholarships out there. College or university based, again, athletic ones or financial need. And this is where maybe merit aid comes in. These are opportunities universities like, let's say, a Macalester that doesn't get a whole lot of students out of the state of Maine, but really likes your student, may throw a bunch of what's called merit aid to entice them to come to the university. And those are, that is aid that is given to you that you do not need to repay, okay? So again, merit aid. We have local ones that we're very blessed to have here at Camden Hills, with tremendous amount of support in this community and money that goes to our seniors. So please take advantage of that when it comes your time next year in February and March and April to apply. Again, a lot of scholarships go unfilled, all right? So please take advantage of it. If you're a student that's applying to a school in Maine, the Worthington Foundation is a foundation you're going to want to get familiar with. They do have a cutoff and it's based in need. So please understand, if you don't have a lot of need, it may not be a scholarship for you. However, please check into it, irregardless. Again, those are local scholarships, either from local businesses. Your business may offer a scholarship, just need to ask. They a lot of times incentivize employees by giving scholarships to their employees' children. Next steps, okay? I have, for the last hour and 20 minutes, spoken a lot at you. It's a lot of information. I hope that you've taken some of this stuff down, but understand we are here to help. If you have any questions, come in, make an appointment, make a virtual appointment, a Zoom appointment right now. Next fall, we will have the building open. You can come in and meet with your son or daughter's counselor. Do your homework, students. Get those brag sheets done. Use your summer effectively. Schedule your senior visit, especially if you're going to be an early action or early decision kiddo. November 1 comes quickly. Ask for help whenever you need it. I thank you so much, guys. I'm going to look and see if we have some questions in here before I open it up. Okay. Write some Naviance stuff. Yeah, maybe. Still seeing the Naviance. Oh, okay. I think you were supposed to still see it anyway. A student asked for a teacher for recommendation in spring to be used in the fall. Yes, you can do that. Now's the time to ask. Do you need to qualify for need-based scholarships, or you can pursue need-based regardless of income? Need-based is need-based. So folks, need-based is usually based on when you file your FAFSA, okay, your federal student aid, you're going to get what's called a SAR report, student aid report, SAR. In that SAR report, you're going to get another acronym called an EFC, Expected Family Contribution. The EFC is what establishes what your need is. Okay. Is it accurate? Most of the time, not. But the government sets that number and says, okay, the EFC is the number that we feel that your family, based on the information that you submitted with the FAFSA, can afford to pay. Whether that's the actual number that you can afford to pay is a different story, and we often call that the gap, all right? So that's how it demonstrates your need. So universities will look at the difference between your EFC number and their bottom line, right? So NYU costs $72,000 a year to go to, which is amazing and staggering. The difference between that $72,000 number and your EFC is your need. If it's 100% need met school, they're going to meet all of that need between the EFC and the bottom line tuition bill, room and board bill. Okay, so that's how your need is established. It's really important when you're looking at schools that you understand that that should be a part of your decision-making matrix. How much money does this school give? And it's demonstrated in all their web pages and their admissions. It's on Naviance. It's called need met percentage. And most schools, if not all schools, I think it's a federal law, are obligated to have a net price calculator on their school website, in particular on their financial aid page. You can very rudimentarily plug in your numbers. You know your tax returns, you know your numbers in there, your income. You can plug those in. It will give you a ballpark figure of what your EFC is. So if you match that up with the need, the tuition cost and your EFC, you're going to see your need, and you say, okay, the Cal system, because they give such great tuition rates for their in-state students, their need met is something like 60 to 70%. They do not give a lot of need. They do not give a lot of money because they're already cutting tuitions for the large percentage of their students because they're in-state students. So that often makes those Cal schools cost prohibitive because they're not giving you a lot of aid. However, if you look at, sometimes the sticker shot scares people off, but and I always use the story. I had a student many years ago. He applied to Yale, had a tremendous amount of need, got in. It's 100% need met school. These schools that have quite literally billion-dollar endowments. It was cheaper for him to go to Yale than it would to attend UMaine, because the university has that much aid to give and the student had that much of a need. Okay, it's need versus aid given. So please factor that into your decision-making matrix. A personal anecdote, when I was applying to college many moons ago, I had gotten into Boston University. My father graduated a legacy, #1 in his class, 3 years in BU. My mom folks are from Boston. This was my school. I had never talked to my parents about how much BU was going to cost them. So when I got the acceptance letter, I was all too eager to say, "Hey, Dad, I got into BU." And he was like, "Great, you're not going there. It costs too much money." Broke my heart. Thank God I got a scholarship to Northeastern, because Northeastern is a better school. And whenever we rode by BU, we always said, "Sucks to be you." And I meant it. No, BU is a great school. Anyone who goes there, no offense to any of you Terriers out there, it's a phenomenal school, offers great experiences for students. But again, I didn't have that uncomfortable conversation with my parents around finances. And so when I did approach them with that acceptance letter, the answer was immediately a no, because it just wasn't a part of the picture. Let's see here. How does my student log into Naviance? Password combination does he use? He doesn't use anything. Just go to the waffle, have him sign into his Google Suite, go to the waffle in the top right-hand corner, navigate through the apps, you'll find the Naviance app, click on it, and it automatically will bring him to the Naviance page. If your student is having trouble navigating to it, guess what? That's a great excuse to come in and meet with your counselor and have your counselor work with your student to show them how to do it. Because again, it's their process. And this is a tool designed for them to use. So give them that agency. Tell them to go meet with your counselor. It really isn't that tricky. But how does he do it on my computer? All he has to do is sign into his school Gmail account. Any of his school, his Google Doc, his Fivetown, or their Fivetown account. Okay. Once he's signed in, top right-hand corner, waffle, navigate through the apps. And again, if they can't find it, just come on in. We'll show you. All right, guys, I had some questions in the chat box. I think I answered them. Can I answer any other questions? Just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask away.
Hi, Jeremy. I asked a question, but maybe it didn't come through, about gap year timing. Does the student just apply as if he or she is going the next year, and then once they're accepted, they request a year off? Or how does that work?
So the way it works with gap years, you will, if the student, and this is how we recommend students handle it. Gap years are notorious for a couple of reasons. They can be a little bit like quicksand, right? It's easy to get into and really hard to get out of. Because if they don't have that final deadline, that start date, backing up against that gap year, all of a sudden that, the gap year to Thailand turns into a gap 2 year or a gap 3 year, I'm never coming back year, all right? The way we recommend is that students apply, and then once they get their acceptance, they do a thing called defer their enrollment. And a lot of students did that this year with COVID, and they deferred. Some schools locked that up and didn't allow students to defer because they were too worried about losing money. And some schools were human and allowed kids to defer. So what that does is it locks in a final date. Okay, you're attending university September of 2023. but I'm going to do a gap year. And you know, for some students, a gap year is a wonderful resource. It helps them tremendously. It allows them to explore some things and get better ideas of who they are, and so they can utilize college a little bit better. You know, I have twin daughters, fastly approaching high school, have different perspectives. One of my daughters has already told me, Dad, taking a gap year, I'm going to go to France. I'm going to study fashion because I want to go into the fashion industry. I'm going to get a job at a fashion house over there so that when I do go to university, I know exactly what I want to study and what I need to get out of university so that when I leave, I can land a job real easily. So, you know, for a 12-year-old, I thought that was pretty savvy of her and I appreciated that. But that was how she's going to use a gap year effectively. You know, whether she sticks to that plan or not, it's a different story.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, I hope I didn't spend, I hope I got, did I get to the Common App? Did folks see the Common App page? Yeah, okay, well, I wasn't on Naviance the whole time. Sorry, this is why I don't like Zoom, folks. And I'd much rather see you all in person. So when I make errors, it's in person and not on a computer screen. Okay, good. We did get to Common App. All right, well, I apologize if I spent a little too much time on Naviance. But any other questions? I'm just going to scroll through here a little bit more if there's any other information. Okay. All right. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, this recording will be up on the website ASAP. We'll have it up there tomorrow, hopefully. And if you have any questions or if I thoroughly confused you tonight by keeping you on sites I shouldn't have kept you on, don't worry. You can always just come in and see your counselor and they'll help you through this process. Okay. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great evening. Enjoy. I'll see you around campus. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.